Excited to welcome Ferris State head coach Andy Bronkema to the podcast. Coach Bronkema has had incredible success at Ferris, including winning the 2018 NCAA Division II National Championship, 3 GLIAC regular season titles, 4 GLIAC tournament titles, as well as being named the 2018 NABC Division II National Coach of the Year and a 2-time GLIAC Coach of the Year as well. Coach Bronkema has won over 75% of his games at Ferris State, and we look forward to learning from him today. Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
We got to know each other a little bit. We got to play against each other in my time in Windsor, and incredible. I followed your success and winning a national championship and tons of GLIAC championships and everything else. And I know you're not coaching at the perfect school either, but you're doing a great job. Can you talk a little bit about why some of this success has happened at Ferris State?
Yeah, first of all, just my story of how I got the job is remarkable. So I don't forget that. And, I'm thankful to be the coach here, and it's a great community. My parents actually lived in married housing here at Ferris State back in the day. So it's a local school for me, for where I grew up, and kind of up and down this 131 highway here, that's where my family's at. So that's what makes it special to me. In a lot of ways, it's a great community to raise family in. I got 3 daughters, and we're happy about that. But as far as basketball goes, there is a rich tradition here of winning, and there's something about Big Rapids, and you can't always it's a beautiful chaos. You can't always put your finger on it. What makes it great, and myself and the coaches here, but especially Tony and East, our football coach, we talk about that beautiful chaos a lot, and so you can win here. The university is a fun place to become educated. It's a college town. We have a lot of good degrees, and we have a history of diversity here. So there's comfortable for a lot of people to come here and, mature and grow. So that helps us out a lot. And then athletically, we're in a good league. So if you're not ready to compete in the Midwest and in the GLIAC, you're going to lose, and nobody likes losing. So you really just find new ways to get things, because we don't have the facilities here. We're below average on the facility level. And any given day in our gym, we have soccer, we have softball clinics, football workouts. The floor gets dusty. It takes a good cleaning every night just to get it back to where we want it for the next day. But you find new ways, you fundraise, you get the community involved and excited about what you're doing, and you recruit towards that Ferris State type of person. And that's blue collar, that's chip on your shoulder, and it's really somebody that wants to develop. And we're getting a lot of no's in recruitment, but the yeses we get are real good fits. And it's taken us to a lot of winning, those players that we've gotten. We've got some real special players, and that's what's made it work.
Well, you sold me. I'm coming, and let's win some more. I loved also the simple identity is something that you've explained. I've seen you explain this before, and that's rebound, run, and pass. Can you highlight that for us?
Yeah, I just think it's real important not to get bogged down and trying to be great at everything. There's so many worthy causes. And you have to have your why in life, but you have to have your why in basketball too. You have to kind of know your identity, and we just wanted to make it as simple as possible. And everybody gets the ball has magical powers, right? When you touch that ball, you play harder, and injuries go away. And it's funny, we've all seen the guy fall down and limp, right? But as soon as the ball hits him in the hands, he's ready to go again. And so that's where the passing comes from. You want to touch the ball, and if you can pass it around, you really get a lot of effort from a lot of different people sharing the ball. So we're trying to get up to 5 guys in double figures during the games. It can be different 5, and usually one of those 5 is really rolling, so he's around 20. That's a pretty good formula. When it comes to rebounding, that's just something that we try to do. It gets you extra shots. It's a pretty basic part of basketball, but you can't be good at it if you just talk about it. You have to really drill it, and you have to spend practice time doing it. And we devote percentages of our practice time and our practice plan to each one of these things based on how we value them. And it's running the court, same thing. We want to play fast. I don't know if we've been able to get the best 5 guys in the league since I've been here, but maybe the best 10 a lot of times. So that depth is something that we're playing into, the development. And that's kind of how we've done it here at Ferris. And those core values, they reflect me. Maybe how I play, maybe how I want to play, or how I dream about playing. So I'm really into them. So it's easy for me to recruit towards those things, and practice those things in practice. So we're all about those 3 things.
Well, it's great to be able to highlight, obviously, the success at a school that I'm going to guess that most coaches that listen to this podcast maybe have not heard of or don't know much about. So the other part that goes with this, and maybe some advice to coaches that are listening about winning with imperfect rosters, because that's one of the challenges as you go down in levels or lower level schools, is that you don't necessarily get the perfect player for your roster, but you can obviously shape your philosophy according to the players that you have. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've tried to build a roster with essentially, and I don't even like starters. I mean, I actually am very against starters. It drives me nuts, but kind of a veteran, a backup, and then a future guy, a redshirt. So in a perfect world, you got 15 guys, 3 at each position. You got somebody that's experienced, and you have a gap class in between, and you got somebody that's backing them up, an apprentice, and then you got a gap in between. You got somebody waiting in the wings, and you're training them all the whole time. And as far as imperfect rosters, you just got to ignore it. You go with it, man. You just put them in the game, and you let them fight through those mistakes. You convince them they're better than they are until they are pretty good. And then you sit back and, you get that delayed gratification. Says, wow, these players are pretty good. And you start that cycle, and you got guys that are ready. And, it's happened over the years with injuries, or with people leaving for whatever reason. And the next man up philosophy, I mean, the guys are ready. They've proven it. So we commit to it. We commit to playing these guys each game, playing through mistakes. And, it's hard at times. And we play with depth. We play with pace because of that depth. But sometimes you turn it over. Sometimes you're playing a guy, we had a National Player of the Year play 28 minutes a game, or just under, which, I mean, that's crazy to some, but to us, it's what we wanted to do to try to stay good here. We also wanted to try to avoid, and you never can totally, but just that pattern of you're good every 3 or 4 years, right? We wanted some sort of sustainable, or at least pretend we could sustain it, of next man up and be good each year. So it's part of the reasons we do the things we do with those imperfect rosters. And, you can offer full rides at Division II, so you can get some really good players, but you're also not getting first pick. So you're talking about, you're getting an athlete that lacks a little skill, or you're getting a skilled player that lacks a little athleticism. You really have to see an avenue to build one of those areas in those recruits and train them. And you can't just get rid of them and get the next guy, because the next guy has to be trained too. So in Division II, there's more of an emphasis on player development than probably any other level. And because you just can't reset the roster, you gotta invest in them.
Well, you've done a great job doing that. And as we know, sometimes those imperfect players become perfect for your system. And it's amazing. Like, again, for example, I coached a 5'8" player who ended up leading our team in rebounding. And you never would have seen that probably at another place to a certain extent. And you find those kind of hidden players all the time, don't you?
You do. Zach Hankins was a $3,000 scholarship. He was injured his senior year. He had a lot of potential. And he blossomed into the National Player of the Year, 2-time first-team All-American. And, it's funny, when we were playing you that year, he had a terrible game. And one of our buddies was at the game, coaching buddies, and he said, well, why'd you play the Project Big so much? I said, man, he could be a Player of the Year of the conference again. And it was funny, though, and it motivated him. So, we don't put that loss on our 38-1. We keep it off, So, but that was a good game. Was that the rebounding guard too that we played against that year? Unbelievable player, man. His name came up a few more times over the years. Yeah, he was great for sure. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And well, we're happy to contribute to that great year you had. You mentioned simple identity. Simple motion is also what you talk about. Can you give us an idea of kind of the template for your simple motion offense?
Yes, four out, one in. Sometimes we've had the spacing high, free throw line extended and in the slots, NBA lane line extended. Sometimes we've put them into the corners. Sometimes we've had 5 out, depending on our back to the basket player. We've had some shooting bigs, but basically, after we run our fast break, we have some sort of secondary or some sort of way to go from 5th gear to 3rd gear, we call it, and we move spontaneously. And we have a lot of conversations with our players about what we think their strengths are, and we come to agreements. We prove it to them, or they just agree. Or if they want to expand in certain areas, we have some shooting measures. If they want to shoot, they have to hit certain goals and so on and so forth. But they get to play within this spacing and within this structure. And if you pass, we want you to cut or screen. We have some cuts that we work through. We have some screens we work through, and you could do that off the ball too. But it's a lot of communication, and the chemistry grows as you work together. So we let the players play in that half court offense, and we focus on spacing and we focus on action. There are always a few what we call triggers. So if you throw it in the post, that triggers certain actions. If you drive it, triggers certain actions. Just like in regular basketball, right? You don't want to just stand and watch. You want to move on penetration. You want to move on post feeds. You want to do those things. So if guards are holding post, there's certain action to get out of that and get back into the 4-out-1 end. So we've had multiple triggers over the years, and multiple entries into our simple offense. So sometimes your offense isn't flowing real well, or you haven't seen a flare or a double 2-0 flare or a tight curl in a while. You can just make those. Over the years, we've made them into entries. So if we're not getting certain flow or certain action, then we'll call it an entry, and that'll get us into the spontaneous flow. So we've done that too. It just kind of depends on the team. Right now, we're pretty good. This year's team, just getting out of the fast break right into flow, and guys know who they are, and pretty happy with that.
So the spacing template is a 4-out-1 in generally, and then you're trying to play with a static post, or is that post able to move quite a bit?
The post should be static if we have a good back to the basket, post. We like that. We like to pound it into them, but that's not always been the case. We've had, like I said, years where we've taken our posts and put them on the perimeter and went 5 out because that was best for us. Or, years where we don't even try to throw it as much to the post. He stays opposite a lot and moves on penetration, shakes up, goes under, or gets drop off passes, weak side rebound. That sort of thing. But we like them on just above the block. We call it prime time. We're trying to throw it to them there, and we want teams to have to defend that. And back to the basket's pretty ancient, I think. Hopefully it's like my daughters are wearing like bell bottoms, basically flared out pants again, so they're coming back. Maybe the post comes back, but we're good right now. We're getting the back to basket players. There's enough of them out there, and not enough people do it. So we recruit them, show them the film, how we pass it to the post players and what we can do with them and how we've developed them. And so we're getting some good post players that way.
Well, and imagine that your players really value the fact that this simple identity of rebound, run, and pass really goes nicely with this simple motion. And in the sense that I know you want to play fast and you've had great success as a transition team, and it must empower your players knowing that they can flow into some freedom as well.
They do like it. And, I'm all about empowering the players, and it makes them play harder when they have a little choice, a little ownership, a little freedom. And honestly, I think it's harder to guard than patterns. We have some continuities, we have some patterns that we can go to, because we don't set a lot of ball screens, if you can believe that, in our motion. We set ball screens in our sets, which we don't have a lot of sets, but in some of our continuities, we set some ball screens if we want to get to ball screen stuff. But there's just, NBA, high level college, it's a lot of ball screen, and we don't do as much of that. So it's like we're a little different to prepare for, perhaps. But they enjoy the freedom.
but it's a controlled freedom because we're really spending a lot of time, convincing, but teaching them, where their skill sets are at, or how they can make their team better, or how they fit into the motion. Because every action within the motion is simple, but if you combine them all together, it's pretty complex. So our new players come in and they're lost. They're just drowned in choices, right? Well, I've always been told what to do. Now I have all these choices and they just kind of freeze. So we might just say, hey, listen, screen away every time, for the first couple of weeks, or hey, try to face cut every time. And then they start adding things to their game. Next thing you know, they're very versatile. They're really playing off each other. Then they know how to get to their open spots, and it clicks. But they drowned at first for sure.
Well, it's some really interesting things to bring out there. That concept I call limiting their buffet. It's like they're not allowed to eat the full buffet when they first get there until they figure it out, right? And they might only have salad, but that helps them. And that's an important part of the teaching process, is that you gradually provide them more opportunities within their development.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I like that. I'm going to steal that from you.
You can have it. And, the other part you talked about, which I want to circle back to, is you mentioned the percentages in practice. Can you give us a breakdown of the percentages that you spend on different things within your practice?
Yeah, I got practice plan right here. First of all, we go pretty short, and in season. And I do that because I want them to have extra energy for extras, before and after practice. I want them to stay, and I don't want to just grind them down. So a lot of times the day before the game, we'll go for an hour, and it's 20 minutes of warm up, and it's 40 minutes of sweating and getting it going. But 15% of our practice is skill. It's big player development in Division II. We have to devote that time to just pivots, ball handling, just fundamentals, everyday skill work, reading ball screens, different actions off of ball screens, skill. Because in Division II, you just really don't have the luxury just to replace a guy. You have to build them up. That's our philosophy. But 15% of our practice is that. 10% is rebounding, just because it's one of our core things that we want to be good at. Can't be good at everything, so we try to rebound 10% of the practice. Got a bunch of different rebounding drills. Towards the middle end of the season, we keep repeating the same ones because they're our favorites, and probably most valuable. And then we break down 35% of our practice to be offense and defense. And then on the defensive side, we're doing a lot of closeout drills, and we work a lot of what I would say defensive wheel. If every spoke on the wheel is a different action you have to defend, we incorporate that into our closeout drill also at the end of our closeout drill. So we'll do that, and we'll do a pressing segment in our defense, and we'll do team defense. So those three headings are always in our 35%, and we'll just pick a drill in each heading. And then offensively, same thing, three headings. We have breakdown drills, like small games, 3-on-3 post feeds, 2-on-2 with a coach, cutting and passing, those type of deals, maybe 5-on-0 sets. And then we have our fast break heading. So we're trying to get up and down, whether we're working on, advantage break or just our secondary break. And then 5-on-5, where we're working, 5-on-5 scenarios. And then at the end of the practice, you got 5% for special situations, special teams, after timeouts, short clocks, need a 3, need a 2, foul or defend, free throw miss, free throw box out, all those sort of things, which we try to get those in so we have a number of reps, as we move forward.
And a huge part of your identity as well is pressing. And you've had great success pressing. And, curious, maybe just quick outline of the different types of presses you use. And then we'll get into some of the phrasing and terminology, because I think that's what's real valuable, is some of the ideas that you share around that.
Yeah, I guess the best way is to describe it. Our pressing is we junk it up a little bit. We throw a lot of variations and a lot of stuff at people. And we press because the shot clock, you have to defend less actions in the half court. We don't always get a lot of steals out of it. That's not one of our main emphasis. Maybe deflections on the ball, steals off the ball is what we do say, but teams get pretty good at breaking the press. I think it can wear teams down, that might not have as much depth. And, we're playing 10, sometimes 11 guys. So that's part of the pressing philosophy. We press man to man. We have the traditional diamond press. We have some 3/4 court presses, and we just try to switch it up. And usually about halftime, we kind of know which ones, blood in the water, which ones we want. So some teams we sprint back. Some teams we get in the presses and we don't trap. It's smoke and mirrors. So we have some stuff we like out of dead balls better. That's easy to set up, and maybe we want to take the inbounder off and play him in center field and face guard. So we have a lot of different variations, and we kind of work that out. We call it reaction press. Once we have everything installed, in the preseason, we just get everybody in the lane, and I call out black or red. There's two jersey colors, and I call out the press, and we react into it. So I'll put in a layup and call out black, and I'll call out the diamond press, and we'll react into it, and we'll play up and down, and then I'll do it again and again. We'll play to a certain score. So that's one of our pressing drills, but we break it all down too. A lot of presses have the same elements, right? So coffin corners are a big deal. Just trapping that initial pass, shading it to the short side, just back tips. We got a lot of back tip drills. One of our big things too is just to get into our shell defense afterwards. We want to stop the scramble at some point in time. We call that fortify. So we're trying to stay fortified, and we're trying to echo that so people know, hey, it's time. Take the drawbridge up and get in the fortress. So we try to do that too. But we drill it up, and we spend time every practice. We preseason and before games, when we practice longer, we have 15-minute segments, for each one of our presses, our man-to-man, our diamond, and our 3/4 court. So we just have build-ups and just spend time doing it.
It's great. So I love the term fortify, and that's one of the terms that I definitely got from your notes. And then the other one that I like is heat it up. Can you talk about heat it up?
I don't think any of the presses work unless you heat the ball up, so you got to get them going fast. And if you're just standing there, the players are too good. There's too many openings. The court's too big. They're just going to pass fake or find an opening and slice you apart. So you got to heat the ball up. You got to put pressure on the ball and make that ball handler, feel it a little bit. So we're trying to heat them up. That's when I say that, our guys know that, and a lot of times you can't be wrong. If the ball handler goes middle, we're programmed for it. They go sideline, we're programmed for it. If it's when you're wrong is when you don't heat them up. So.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you with this, you called it junk it up, but it's also a little bit of a read and react in terms of your press, is that when you can set the alignment initially or the scout initially that you want to take away, but beyond that, it comes back to defensive decision-making and players reading what another player does. So can you talk a little bit about that component and then how you develop it within your pressure?
Well, yeah, the decision-making comes with reps. So we try to, all the drills that we've built in these sequences, we try to get the most cookie cutter situations that happen the most, and we put them in that situation time and time again, so they get used to playing in between too and anticipating where the guy's going to throw it out of the trap, by where his body's positioned, and his eyes. If he's looking one way, he's probably going to throw that way, right? Or he'd have to pivot all the way around to throw it to the other guy. So we get used to that, try to anticipate. And, if a guy splits a trap, that's a great back tip opportunity. One guy chasing on both sides, we do drills like that too. So we try to drill out the situations that happen the most, but then we also know that if the press gets broke and we fortify, there's probably 20 seconds on the shot clock, and we have to defend two less position, one less ball screen or one less stagger or something. So we also know we've won that way. And so all is not lost if they just shred through the press, a little easier, and we don't get some sort of steal or something. So that's kind of how we break it down. That's our thought process.
So today's a game day, for example.
Yeah.
So going into a game day, let's talk a little bit about that with the press. What are you doing to prepare your team to play against a specific opponent? What are some of the things that you're doing?
It depends on the personnel. I mean, it really does, and depends on their style. We have teams that execute like crazy in the half court, right? And so we might be more aggressive on them because they don't necessarily want to break the press for scores because they're so efficient in the half court. Why would they? You know, other teams are going to break it for scores and throw the long diagonal pass or throw the pass over top and shoot it quick. So maybe it's stunting, one step at the ball, two steps back, and we're in a no trap situation, or maybe they have a dominant guard that wants to initiate early offense. So we'll special them. We'll put two guys on them, one off the inbounder, and we'll make somebody else dribble it up. Or maybe we think their 4-man is an average ball handler compared to our 4-man, doing a Z drill on him in full court. So we'll trap right away. They'll throw it back to the 4-man, and we'll try to have him initiate the offense. I mean, there's just a lot of things you can do. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. The teams in our league, they're used to it, and they know what's coming. So, they're good at breaking it too. But it does have an effect over time of wearing teams down. And, I like to think you have to prepare a little bit different, when you're playing Ferris, because not as many teams are doing this. So you have to kind of, I told you the percentages of my practice plan, so every coach probably has that, but maybe they have to take away and put in a press break scenario percentage. So it's taking away some of their bread and butter, perhaps.
Well, absolutely. And are you scouting their press entry, their press break, and working versus it? Or do you want your players to be more just free and flowing with it?
Free and flowing. We usually know who's going to take the ball out of bounds. And that can determine who we might put on the top of the press. Because when you fortify, if you can have that guy on the top, a lot of times he's going to meet up with the guy he should be guarding. Because we mismatch sometimes when we fortify, and we're okay with that. But there's opportunity to switch back, or there's opportunity to switch where you start based on their press break. And then just basically, are they going to, a lot of teams will throw it into the middle. So we might want to cover up the middleman instead of playing in between, and anticipating. We might just want to cover that guy up and make him throw it to one guy or the other. So, but it's more free flowing. I never got to the point, even on the offensive end, we kind of just do what we do, and we don't worry as much about what the other team is going to do. And I think you can do that with some success, but you have to spend so much time on it. I'd rather have our guys think less, and think less in the press, think less in the half court on offense, on defense, just kind of plug the other team into what we want to try to accomplish, and not be bogged down by, thoughts and slowed down by a lot of thinking.
Well, it makes sense because that connects back to your simple identity as well, which is you want to keep things simple for them. So it makes sense. And you mentioned pressing on misses. Is that something that you consistently do, or is that, again, certain opponents you'll press on misses?
We don't press a lot on misses. Missed free throws are a little easier. I've done a little studying of it. I'm not there yet on misses. So it's been on made shots to this point, but we've toyed with it in our mind, and it's just another element that when you press, you have to live with a lot of different things that you can't control, right? So that's even a messier version. If you're pressing during misses, then coaches like to have a certain amount of control, and now it just feels like it's even more out of control. Now you're just jumping and trying to. And we do like to fortify at the end of our press and play shell defense, play man-to-man, fundamental shell defense. I think if you press when you miss, you're giving up on some of that. You're really relying on early shots in that tempo, and we're not quite there yet.
Well, and at least people think it's chaos. I mean, your team's very well coached. You can tell from watching. You can tell they're organized. You tell they have an understanding of what's happening. But to your point, sometimes for you as a coach, you have very little control in any of these situations. And that's often the case for most coaches, but you even have less control, don't you?
Yeah. Yep. So you hand it over to them, you trust them, you try to teach them. And you basically just trust them and help them where you can, and control what you can control, but I think it's better that way. That's why we do it, because I think it's better that way. And, I never thought I was that smart anyway. So, having me have all the control, we have good players, and when they buy in and they understand things, they really make a lot of plays out there for you. And I think you could take away those possible plays that could be made by controlling things. And, every once in a while I'm barking commands from the sideline a little bit too much, and I get reminded, hey, even though it might be right what I'm saying, it's bogging them down. They're thinking too much. They got to be able to play basketball, and if you want to do those things, teach them better in practice. So yeah.
And one of the things that I've seen you talk about and saw in your notes is this idea of incorporating the press in what you do, that the press becomes a part of everything that you do, and especially in terms of some of these reaction drills. Can you talk about that?
It'll be like if we're running our 5-on-0 sets, right? So we would call a set, and then after we scored on the set, we would call a press that we react into. So when you're practicing your 5-on-0 sets, it's not done until you sort of bucket and then get into the press that you're going to be in. Our fast break drills, because we're trying to run. It's one of our principles, but when we're running fast break drills, we've always got a press call. So we call 5-on-4.5. It's pretty typical drill everybody runs. Put them across the free throw line, across the baseline, call out somebody's name. They touch the baseline. It's advantage break, right? It's 5-on-4 until the guy gets back. So the team that has the ball on offense, if they score, they'll be in a press on the way back. We always go down and back and then reset it. Well, I let them call their own press. They huddle together. Same with rebounding drills. We do a lot of down and back rebounding drills. They're always calling a press. It's not just about the rebounding. They're in something. They're in a press. We run a 10-minute drill in practice, and it's just a 10-minute scrimmage. And, we're always in the press. It's constantly part of what we do and how we're going to do it. So it's just always on our mind, and we make sure that it's a part of each drill, and it's not just it's time to press, in practice, 15 minutes worth of pressing drills. No, they're weaved into everything else we do.
And you mentioned the fast break, and you've already mentioned some terminology in the press in terms of heated up and fortify, which I love. But you also have some really good terminology with your fast break. And I want you to just share some of the ideas around this: up the street, across the street.
Yeah, I guess those are just cute ways to say pass the ball up the floor, whether it's across the floor or up the floor. The basketball is faster than any player, so we try to throw it up the floor, and that helps out in a lot of ways. If teams want to take that away, then you have some coast-to-coast options, or your secondary offense can set lower in scoring areas, or your rebounding's better because they're sprinting back and trying to take those advances away. So, your defensive rebounding is a lot better, but we try to get it up the floor, up the street. Is the same side, and across the street's the other side. And if we can't, we'll go into our secondary break. And, like I said, fifth gear to third gear, if we can't score a quick strike, 5-second score, or, somewhere around there, then we'll slow it right down and run our secondary break into our motion offense and try to pass up good shots for great ones.
Well, and the phrasing coast to coast goes hand in hand with these two things, because of course, if you can't pass up the street or go pass across the street, you can go coast to coast generally, because that means those passes are denied and there's more gravity to be able to attack off the dribble. So talk a little bit about coast to coast.
Well, we're running to the corners, so we're trying to get big gaps. And, I don't know, when I, still play a little bit of basketball, old man basketball, but when somebody's charging at you at full speed and you're on your heels, that's kind of that's a bad feeling. So if everybody up the street and across the street is covered up, it's one-on-one with a full head of steam, and you got to put your chest on that guy. That's hard to do. I know it's hard for our guys to do. And like I said, if they do sprint back and get in the gaps and form a wall, usually it's, 15, 16 feet away from the basket. And I feel like we can really set our offense into a scoring area, so that initial action we can score on because it's deep. And maybe we come off a trail ball screen and we're one dribble and we're in that half moon and we can make that shot. It's a pretty good shot close to the basket. So we want to put pressure on the play paintball, get touches in there, 2 feet in there, jump stop, play off 2 feet. And we could do that coast to coast too. It's not always for a score, it's to draw 2 so you can make a pass to the open man.
It's great stuff. And I love the terminology. And then so many coaches will be happy to hear that you rim run and you still emphasize the post, which you already mentioned, but especially in transition. Can you talk about the different things that you emphasize off the rim run and being able to make that player an option for your team?
Yeah, so we went back and forth over the years. If you want a traditional rim run, even if you don't get it a lot, everybody vacuums to that rim runner, so there's a vacuum effect. But rim run is, over the years for us, has become like a read. If the rim is open, you run to it. Otherwise, we've been in a lot of 5-out spacing in our fast break. And the initial action will take the one into the post off the 5-out spacing, and we switch it up over the years. You can't just do the exact same thing every year, based on your personnel, and you get stagnant and crusty too. So, but we don't want to give up that rim runner. And a lot of times there's a distinction too, because it could be somebody else running the rim, like on a steal or a long rebound. That fast break is always different than your structured break. That's more what we call a jailbreak. You're just going, you're just busting out and running into the openings. So we have that aspect of it too, where, kind of the rules are off. We've got a steal or we've got a long rebound, and it's just time to, attack the rim. So it could be a wing or a 4-man run on the rim too.
Well, and there has to be a healthy balance of obviously passes to that rim runner in a sense, or at least looks into that rim runner so that they know that their running is valued. Can you talk about some of these things in terms of running to corners and running to the rim, and how you encourage your players to do it and reinforce it through valuing them?
Well, we're going to pass it to them, so that's the ultimate value. We always compare it to football wide receivers, and you talk about everybody running their route to full speed, even though they know they're the check down, or they know that they're the third option. It doesn't matter. You have to run that hard. And honestly, we'd be wasting our time playing 10 guys if we didn't run fast and run hard, so there's always the idea of just, hey, we could just play 7 guys and walk it up, if you want to walk, and nobody wants to do that, especially, 8, 9, and 10, so we're running. And, running fast creates bigger gaps too. You start to jog, you never get all the way to the corners, and you don't open up those lanes, those driving lanes. And I think the biggest thing is that they could get the ball, because they actually do get the ball. And that's motivating. That's motivating when you actually touch it. Like I said, the ball has magic powers. And, when you touch it, you illuminate, you feel better. And then if you actually see it go through the hoop, then your defense gets better, your energy gets better, you're going to dive on the floor the next time. So we're trying to make people run, but we're rewarding them. It's not a meaningless pattern. They're going to get the ball.
Well, I think we can tell, obviously, the simple identity it all starts with, and then everything flows off of that. And you give your players great freedom. What have been some of the challenges in trying to repeat the success of winning that national championship? And clearly you've had great success since, but maybe give us an idea, because I think too often we think about, the rebuild and building it up to the championship level, and not enough about how to sustain that success once you get there.
Yeah, it's hard to sustain the success. Zach was a player of the year for us, and he transferred to Xavier after that year for his grad transfer year. And obviously losing a player of the year, was hard when you talk about repeating. And then there's always injuries, and there's been COVID. So the answer is we're trying to be the best we can be with each team. and sometimes that's not national champs. And sometimes we get really good so that if we played the national champs in a, we played them 10 times, who knows, we beat them 3 or 4, and we could beat the national champs. But when you actually win it, so like the year we won it, our margin for error was so high that we won some games where we didn't even play as well as we could have, so creating that margin for error is something that we try to do intentionally. We try to do it on the whiteboard. We figure it out, like, hey, how can we get as powerful as we can, yet how can we have all these 10 guys have some sort of path to happiness? Because as soon as the guy is not happy or doesn't play, and it's always about playing time, he's out of here, or he gets disgruntled and then misery seeks company. So it's like a balancing act of trying to get back there. But I think what will happen, maybe we'll never get back. Maybe we'll never win it again. That'll be all right, because it's not like the main goal. The main goal is to become as good as we can, and one of these teams probably will be good enough and we'll do it. So we're just trying to reach full potential, and that's a much easier way to digest, the monumental challenge of doing it again.
Coach, I'm grateful for this. I got a chance to get to know you even more, and I can tell, man, you love coaching, and it does come back to that, doesn't it? I mean, we coach basketball for a living. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is good, and I remember where I came from and the opportunities that have been given to me. I'm very thankful for them. It's my why, it's my passion, it's my mission. And regardless of where you're at, you make the big time where you're at, and your mission is your mission. So I started out wanting to be the varsity coach at a Class D charter school, and I was really excited about it. And I ended up here, and I'm happy to be here. I feel like I'm supposed to be here, and as long as I have that feeling, I'm fired up.